The English humorist Jerome wrote, "I'm fascinated by work. I could sit and watch it for hours." Did you ever notice that in your neighborhood, anytime there's a project being done, whether they're digging a ditch or fixing the road or whatever, there's always 4 or 5 guys standing over there going like this? Supervisors, I guess. Except if the Department of Transportation is doing it, those 4 or 5 guys are getting paid. Well, Nehemiah does a wonderful job in this chapter of expressing to us that there were wall-to-wall workers. There was all kinds of folks doing all kinds of jobs to get that wall and all of the gates rebuilt. And it's important that we understand the purpose of their work. If we go back to chapter 2, Nehemiah writes that the response of the people when he said, "Hey, we need to go rebuild that wall," was, "The God of heaven will make sure we succeed. We're his servants and we're going to work rebuilding." You see, the purpose of their work was not so that Nehemiah would look good. The purpose of their work was to glorify God. Everything we do around here is to make Pastor Keith look good, right? Right. No, everything we do around here is to the glory of God. It ain't about me. It's about God. It's important that we understand that. It's important that we realize that everything we do around here has a singular purpose, and that's to glorify God. Now, I've got a bunch of pastor acquaintances of mine whose goal in their ministry is to leave behind something that they can be known for. Whether it's a new sanctuary or a classroom building or a fancy sign or whatever it is. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff at all. I'm not interested in leaving an edifice. Got to make sure my grammar's right for all the old English teachers out there. They'll start attacking me. You see, I did my building when I was a lot younger. My home church, when I was in my early 20s, rebuilt the sanctuary, or built a new sanctuary, and I was on the building committee. Now, my home church had 3,200 members at that time, and we built a sanctuary to end all sanctuaries. It seats 1,300 people. It's a gigantic octagon. It has a solid redwood ceiling. It's spectacular. Cost a whole lot of money and took a whole lot of time. So I done my building thing. If I want to say what I left behind on the face of this earth, I can point to that. I'm not interested in building something around here, but I am interested in building something around here. I'm interested in building a ministry that glorifies God. It takes a lot of people to do that. And the interesting thing about this chapter in Nehemiah is he kind of outlines for us the pattern of the work that they did. You see, the pattern of their work was to plan the work and work the plan. To plan the work and work the plan. Warren Wiersbe, one of my favorite theologians, wrote about this chapter, this paragraph. 38 individual workers are named in this chapter, and 42 different groups are identified. There are also many Nehemiah did not name whose labors were important, and each worker, named and anonymous, was assigned a place and a task. We got a lot of folks around here, and we got a lot of things to do. And one of the things that our session and our deacons are doing is they're doing a lot of planning. They're looking ahead at what things need to be done and how we might go about doing them. And then when the plan gets put together, we work the plan. There's a whole lot of things to do and a whole lot of folks to do them. And I think we need to understand that the plans all have the same goal: to glorify God. What's the goal of all the plans around here? Glorify God. Good answer. Now, then Nehemiah goes on to talk about the people in the work. And one thing that I think we can get from Nehemiah's chapter 3 is that God uses all kinds of people. God uses all kinds of people. God uses the strong and the weak. God uses the mighty and the not so mighty. God uses the young and the old. God uses men and women. God uses everyone in His kingdom. And that means there's something for you to do. You know, there's all kinds of stuff going on around this place. A lot of it you don't see. There's a group of folks. I don't even know if they're connected. I don't even think it's formal. I think they just kind of show up and work in the yard around here. They're pulling weeds, they're putting out bark, they're planting plants, and every once in a while I'll walk outside and I'll go, "It's 92 degrees, don't you have a home?" And to a one, they all reply, "Oh, you know what, I'm having a great time. I'm really having fun. I'm enjoying making this place look beautiful." Now, not everybody's a gardener. Not everybody's crazy enough to go out at 92 degrees when it's all hot and sweaty and work in the yard. But there's a whole lot of other things that happen around here that you don't see. Not everybody stands up front talking to you. Not everybody sings in the choir on Sunday morning. But there are some amazing things happening around here by folks you would never expect are doing it. Well, Nehemiah talks about some things that are related to God using all kinds of people. First, he says, leaders must set the example. The high priest Eliashib and his fellow priests were up and at it. They went to work on the sheep gate, and they repaired it and hung its doors. As your pastor, I need to be an example. I need to not go, "Well, you know, I can't be folding chairs. That's just not in my scope." You'll see me out here getting my fingernails dirty every once in a while. You'll see me involved in doing some stuff that, I remember last year, I got behind the counter on Wednesday nights and was serving food. I got the craziest looks you ever saw. "What are you doing back there? You're the pastor." It works, doesn't it? Our leaders need to set example. Our session members are involved in all kinds of ministries around this place. They're not just sitting around a table in the office making decisions. They're getting their fingernails dirty too. The leadership has to set the example, but then Nehemiah reminds us that some people will not work. And next to them was the Tekoites, except for their nobles, who wouldn't work with their master and refused to get their hands dirty with such jobs. Some people just won't work. Some people don't want to. They think they're too good or too busy or too whatever. I hope we don't have too many nobles around this place. I hope y'all realize that we don't have a pecking order around here. There's nobody more important than anybody else. Heck, I'm your pastor. I'm not even a member of this church. I work here. It's your church. You're the important ones. The next thing Nehemiah reminds us is that some people do more work than others. There's folks around here that are just busy as bees. They're here every day of the week just about. They're always doing something, whether it's folding papers or picking up something or going and visiting folks or stopping by, seeing people at the hospital. And every once in a while I'll go out and look at them and go, do you not have a home? Some folks are just busy that way. Some folks aren't that busy. Some folks don't have that much energy. And also, some people work harder than others. Some have the time. Some have the strength and the ability. And they're just at it all the time. And finally, and I think most importantly, some people do their work from home. Benjamin and Hasab worked on the wall in front of their house. You know, a church, if it's being done right, happens mostly not here. Church happens when you leave this place. You see, because this is a place, it's kind of like at night when you plug in your smartphone to recharge it. This is a place you should come to get recharged so you can go out and do the real work of the church. Because the real work of the church is probably something that very few people will see. Maybe the real work of the church that you're doing is bringing food to your neighbor a couple of 3 doors down who's going through a tough time health-wise and needs an extra meal. That's the real work of the church. The real work of the church happens when you go and visit somebody in the hospital or someone who's lonely. That's when church happens. The real work of the church is when you're nice to somebody in the grocery store. And I've got a lot of Baptist pastor brothers and sisters who think it's so important that you get out there and witness. Go knock on them doors and beat them over the head with the Bible. But I would argue that the real witnessing happens when you deliver that meal, when you visit that friend, when you're nice in the store. And the real witnessing happens because eventually the people that you are caring for or visiting or nice to will say, "Why are you doing this?" And then you'll have a chance to tell them your story. Now, you don't need to be a theologian. You don't need to have one of them. Remember from the 70s, the little pamphlets, the 4 spiritual laws? We used to call them the 4 spiritual flaws. You don't have to have a booklet. You don't have to memorize scripture. When someone asks you, "Why are you doing this for me?" you go, "Because, man, God loves me so much I can't hardly stand it. I got to do something about it. And otherwise, I probably wouldn't be very nice to you at all. But God was nice to me. And I just feel like I got to share that with others." That's when church happens. We got so many people around here to do the work of God, we don't have room for all of them. And we got so many things to do, we can't even put together a list of them. And I know that so many of you are out there doing church. And I pray to God thanks every single day. And there may be some of you who still haven't figured out that this church stuff doesn't just happen here, it happens out there. I hope that you'll think really hard about what kind of legacy you want to leave and what kind of ministry that God is calling you to do away from here. Because, ladies and gentlemen, That's what really